Hi, Dr. Regan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now. You're right. If they're not growing, they're looking somewhere else. Yep. And it doesn't have to mean growing into a new role. Welcome to the Everyday Practices Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson, and my co-host, Dr. Chad Johnson, and I are on a mission to share the stories of everyday dentists who generate extraordinary results using practical, proven methods you can take right into your own dental practice. If you're ready to elevate patient care and produce results that are anything but ordinary, buckle up and listen in. Welcome to Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. I am your host, Regan Robertson, and I am here with Dr. Chad Johnson. He is not practicing dentistry today. He is not off on a glorious vacation. He is not volunteering in many of his philanthropic endeavors. He's here with us today. Welcome, Chad.
Wah, wah. Here I am. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. Yeah. And do you want to know a secret? I'm going to share it to the whole world here. Okay.
Oh, do I know this secret?
Yes, you do. So okay. my wife doesn't listen to this. So she's also out there like, with the kids and stuff. So I'll just say it kind of softly, but are you listening? Do you have the volume turned up enough? Okay. So I'm going to take my wife on a secret trip to Iceland that she doesn't know about after Christmas. She's finding out on Christmas. Yes, some people hate me for that. Yes, I can get over that. No, they're just like, you're only giving her one day to plan. And I'm like, yep. And
I see. Consideration of her. Is she a planner?
I think she'll roll with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how long have you been married?
Right. 17 years.
Then I think you're going to know your spouse after 17 years. You probably are going to know what she's going to roll with.
And a lot of the small details and whatnot, I have planned out well. And so we're ready to roll. So yes, so I'm not somewhere fun right now, but I am planning somewhere fun. So we're going to do a week, and I'm, you guys will hear this, who knows when. So the trip's probably already over. Yes, I'll share with you the details and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to seeing if there's like any of that volcanic activity, if we get to see some of that, come about. So we'll see.
This is a Hallmark movie. I am invested in this storyline deeply.
Yeah, right. Yeah. This is Hallmark taken to another level, because when you're involving volcanology, that's just another level.
Volcanology? No, volcanology.
Correct, volcanology.
I've never heard of that term before.
Yeah, well, you've heard of volcanologists, right?
No.
No? Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I know what it is. Clearly,
Correct.
It's very self-explanatory. But no, I've never heard a volcano scientist being called a volcanologist.
It's the art and science of marshmallow roasting.
I love it. I should be a storyologist.
Yes. You know what? I almost see that being a Donald Miller kind of thing. Right. All right. Enough of the cuddle talk. Listen, listeners, we are talking about The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. This is part of our book series. And Regan, you've been reading it. Why don't you fess up to the listeners?
I'm on chapter 5. I've not completed the book yet, and I am so compelled. It is so good.
Good. So share with me what you've read so far and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, what I understand about this gentleman, now I have done no previous research on him. I don't know anything about his background or anything like that. But, he starts off telling the tale of really being in tech, in big tech, during the late 90s, early 2000s, when it was not actually a great time. So like on the edge there when everything was crashing, and he pushes through to be ultra successful and all of the challenges that come with the process of it. So by chapter 5, I've read through him starting up Loud Cloud, a service, and then breaking it off, starting it into like creating a new company out of it, watching the stock price rise and then come crashing down dramatically, going public, being responsible for all of this capital and all of the dynamics that go along with it. And really, I mean, just like the title said, the hard thing about hard things. So a book that is about what happens when really things go wrong. And I love it because I feel like this series of book lessons, the past 2 now, the 4-hour work week, which listeners, you can go hear at a previous podcast. And this one feels like reverse engineering to me because I've been a leader for many years now and I've gone through hard things. And so reading it now gives me a much different context than had I read it 20 years ago.
Well, and when you are a dentist business owner, so not every dentist, but when you are a small business owner, you are the CEO naturally. Yes. And so you would read this also with a different flavor because we're not dealing with a $200 billion company or stuff like that, as Ben Horowitz was. With big transactions, but we are working a multi-million-dollar industry kind of stuff. We have big decisions to make, and those decisions also affect our paycheck. So basically, like to recap from our book series, we've had a lot on Stoicism, and this book kind of goes off of that. So within context, here it is. There are no silver bullets for this, only lead bullets. They did not want to hear that, Ben writes to his leadership team. But it made things clear. We had to build a better product. There was no way out, no window, no hole, no escape hatch, no back door. We had to go through the front door and deal with a big, ugly guy blocking it. Lead bullets. After 9 months of hard work on an extremely rugged product cycle, we regained our product lead and eventually built a company that was worth $1.6 billion. And then the chapter went on to say, stop looking for the silver bullet. There comes a time in every company's life where it must fight for its life. If you find yourself running when you should be fighting, you need to ask yourself, if our company isn't good enough to win, then why do we need to exist at all? So in other words, we don't get this too big to fail stuff as a dental office, right? So what makes you unique enough that you should succeed? You're not entitled to success, right? So how are you any different? And what are you going to do better or faster or cheaper? I mean, it's one of those three, right? Better, faster, cheaper, or a combo thereof to outwin your competition as far as being able to pay the bills, being able to keep the lights on. Now, I know that's rudimentary level, but then you start getting up the hierarchy and going, okay, well, so how do we become altruistic? How do we become the kind of office that we want, others to emulate? How do we become the kind of office that we are excited to get to work and we're looking forward to taking care of patients? What are we going to do so well? And right now, if our company isn't winning, what do we need why do we need to even exist? So answering some of those big questions, this is a stoic moment within the book where he's like, there's no silver bullets, only lead bullets. In other words, sometimes it's just the mundane Tuesday morning grind and get over it. So that was one of my takeaways.
Well, he has this work ethic in his description of the first few chapters when he's talking specifically about that. If there is no silver bullet and there's only lead bullets, you have to be willing to put in the work and get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is where I know, a lot of us have gone through. You do have to put in the hours. And I think what you said, though, really tips the surface. What is the mission? And Dr. Bruce, I feel similarities between Elon Musk and Dr. Bruce Baird and Victoria Peterson in the way that they actually approach problems, and Horowitz now as well. How Bruce puts it and Victoria put it is, when things are going wrong, get into relationship. So how I define that and how Ben reflects in the book itself too is you must focus on quality for retention purposes. So in other words, if there is lead bullets happening look at the product, look at what you're doing, get feedback. That was a huge one that I like circled and underlined, was getting feedback from customers. Yeah. And I have seen Elon do that when I used to be on Twitter. I haven't been for eons now, but I remember him like publicly looking for feedback and genuinely listening to that feedback, because he wanted to create a product that people would actually use. Mm. And so, if we trick ourselves into thinking that there are silver bullets, that's just not the reality at all. And no matter what, nothing ever is going to go fully to plan. So it's better to plan for handling the objection before it's an objection, because things will indeed go sideways on you. No matter if you are a startup dental practice or multi-million-dollar dental practice or a, multi-billionaire corporation.
So here's where one of the the first of three main takeaways that I have is that the CEO should be the first to shout out when a crisis occurs. And this is stoicism, again, applied where if there's a problem going on, he says, here's the deal. A lot of businesses try and cover up crises. That's a sucker's move for two reasons. Number one, the stuff is going to leak out anyway, so employees are going to find out. So who are you trying to fool? And then by trying to solve the problem alone in secrecy, you're not allocating your resources to that problem, and it deserves those resources. So in other words, if you have your team working on it with you, then you're going to be able to get through it better. But if you're secretly trying to hide stuff, basically air it out. So your thoughts on the CEO should be the first one to shout when a crisis occurs.
I couldn't agree more. This is one of the best lessons, and I've lived through this lesson myself, and in seeing other leaders go through it at the same time. Because the natural instinct, I think, it's a counterintuitive one. I think the natural instinct as a leader is to paint that rosy picture and always be positive. You can use positivity and still be really honest about what's going on. So transparency, I think, is king, and I've had great success in sharing transparently, what challenges we have to face together in order to get the company to the next level, in order to serve clients better, whatever the task at hand may be. But if you try to gloss it over, and people can feel it, it's like it just feels disingenuous. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can get around that, really. And that creates this space that doesn't need to exist. But it is not easy to do. I think it's easy to talk about it now, but I don't think it's easy to do in the beginning of your leadership journey necessarily.
Well, the author gives us the permission to be honest with our team, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, hanging all your guts out, but you could just say, right. Hey, can I be honest? We've not had a good couple months, and we need to find ways to be able to be viable, because we're not getting the new patients that we need, or something like that, So listen, it kind of leads into the second one. The second takeaway that I wrote down, there are two types of CEOs, and this isn't within the book. He calls them ones and twos. Ones are, and this plays into, EOS.
Yes.
So Gino Wickman's, and I'm sure others, but basically there's two kinds of thinkers, and this is a broad brushstroke, but the ones, as he calls them, are the strategic CEOs, or the visionaries. So think about visionaries and stuff like that. He gives an example of Bill Gates. The twos are the executive and management type. So execution, managing, over researching and trying to make decisions. So they're the practical CEOs who want to implement and to direct a team and get stuff done. So they're the implementers, and stuff like that. So think about which one you are, and then in essence, try and compensate by working on your skills, so that, not that you have to be evenly balanced in everything. Oh my goodness, I see your face, Regan. You want to speak? Well, no, you're full of ideas. I'm sorry. But no. You're lighting up. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I'm just like, oh no. But, in essence, try and find your weakness and then work on that a smidge, so that way you're a natural number one who's working on their number two, or and I'm not talking about poop, or a natural number two who's working on their number one. Yeah, I said
you threw me with the poop comment. Well, so now I gotta read. Okay.
Who does number two work for?
I lit up because I have never had the words to articulate Steve Jobs versus Tim Cook. And I have often operated under the assumption that a great CEO is a visionary only, and haven't really thought about researching the great executioner type CEOs that are good at it's the integrator role is what EOS calls it, I think, is the integrator person. Yeah. And so this is what I've thought about even in my own journey as well. Well, I'm not like a great visionary. I can't see 5 years down the road and interpret what's going, but I have the luxury of working with a very, very keen two visionaries, co-founders that are able to see quite far down. But there is value in having that practical execution CEO as well. So they're just two different people. And I think my contrary view is, I don't think you should try to lift up your weaknesses. I used to think that, and I've tried to do that myself. I call them my blind spots. I think the secret is surrounding yourself with people who actually have strengths that are in, and I believe it says that in the book, but not where I'm at right now yet. I read it in your notes about the two different types of CEOs, and I was just really excited about it because I think the answer to that is yes. Surround yourself with people who excel in those areas where you're weak, and then you kind of complete the puzzle together.
Yeah. Like I alluded to, I'm not the biggest fan of necessarily being like making sure that you're even, in everything.
Would be great if I was balanced in all ways. And I think it's good to know, like, you should be self-aware. Great leaders are always self-aware. So you should know what you're great at and what you're not great at it. But, and I wouldn't say try to go backwards on it.
Regress. Yeah.
But I'm not trying to learn Italian and Icelandic at the exact same time, like my co-host. Right. Little overachiever, maybe.
Just, maybe. Right. So lesson 3, take home 3, what makes a great CEO is to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so this is a take home from the book. Your thoughts on that, Regan?
So yes, I think it's a cliche to say it, and it's so accurate though. And that's again one of those things where you have to live through it. You have to have enough experience in life to show you that being uncomfortable is an okay thing to be. I talk a lot about that with the kids and school, and that I think that a portion of their learning has nothing to do with the content at all. It's actually getting comfortable being uncomfortable with the process of learning, because you want to be an expert right away. You want to just have the proficiency in it so you can just ride your bike better, or you can learn a language or whatever it is that you're interested in. But the actual gift is learning how to navigate learning and being uncomfortable in that. So I think we start out as children with that. And one of the gifts that I see in that has helped me is being able to evaluate from different perspectives. And I love I don't remember if it's chapter 2 or 3, but he talks about when he was about ready to go public, he was in negotiations, and the gentleman that he was in negotiations with was very displeasant. He was not pleasant to work with, and he listened at a deeper level. He slowed down and listened for what the guy actually wanted. I believe his name was Frank. What Frank wanted. And he actually attacked the problem from a different angle. So by turning his perspective and thinking about it from Frank's point of view, he was able to get the deal done in a very unique manner, if that makes sense. And I think you have to be willing to be comfortable with a little bit of discomfort in that situation, because you're taking risk in that. You're taking risks, and the risk was big in that particular instance. The risk was buying another company that this gentleman wanted so that they could include it in the deal. And all of his advisors said, that is a really bad idea.
Yep.
And you've got 340 jobs on the line. You've got millions of investor dollars on the line, and it all comes down to you. And he made the decision, and it happened to be the right decision. But we know that that's not always the case. Tell me a better example of being uncomfortable You could implode it and all these people would lose their jobs, livelihoods, all that, make investors mad.
Well, and the take home for that for dentists is the exact thing that I did at 2020 with the closing of our offices and stuff like that, going fee for service. Like that's burning the ships. This example that you're talking about, it reminds me actually of a lot of books that we're either going to cover or already covered. One of them being Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. Another one, and I'm just preluding this, because just so you know, like we've got 20-ish books that we're wanting to tackle, and we're just kind of chipping away at them.
What book are we on? 4, 3? I don't even remember.
You know what? On the list, we're on 5. This is number 5. We've done Talent is Overrated, The Obstacle is the Way, The Inner Game of Tennis. And I was going to mention that, The Inner Game of Tennis, not the 4-hour work week in regard to this point. But then even there's 2 more books, Margin by Dr. Richard Swenson and The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy that go into this kind of stuff. And I think even Jim Collins is Good to Great, talking about your weaknesses and
that'll be a good one to revisit. I have that one right back here.
Good. Yeah. So I just, it's kind of neat to think like I've got this list and it's almost like I want to hash out all these right now, but I'm just saying, be looking forward to these other books that we're going to be doing that are basically like looking at it from different vantage points, saying about the same thing. Be your best you and be vulnerable enough to be, when you're not good at something, like that's okay. For example, one of my desires when I retire, if that's even a thing or whatever, is at some point I want to learn how to play violin, not so I can become good at it, but because I want to appreciate how hard it is. So that way, when I'm listening, I can be like, wow. For example, when I took up swimming, I was 28. And I started swimming. And when I started swimming, I then would watch Michael Phelps do the, I'd watch Michael Phelps do the 100-meter dash, the 100-meter, freestyle. And he'd finish in, I don't know, I don't even remember the times. Let's say 40 to 45 seconds, something like that. And I'm just thinking, that's how long it takes me to swim 50. Like I get it now. Like, so, but before, like at that point, I'm almost 30 years old at that point thinking, so I watch these people swim. So what? He got first place. He's fast. I'm sure he got an Olympic gold medal. I'm sure he's fast. I don't doubt that, but I don't have any reference. And now all of a sudden I'm going, wait a second. He's swimming twice as fast as I am. And he's making it look effortlessly. And that's when I started, like, I'm just, for now, one of the things I'd like to learn how to play violin. And again, not so that way I can, fill concert halls and stuff like that for myself, but for my own knowledge to understand the difficulty of it and basically get, it's like Sudoku and stuff like that. It's for older people. It's good for your brain. It's good.
But do you see how, that fits into being uncomfortable? That fits into, that's approaching a goal from an entirely different perspective. I've not heard anybody say, I just want to appreciate how difficult it is. So I'm going to attempt this. No, I think if I asked 10 people, I don't think anyone would have given me that answer except, maybe you and a few others, but really it would inherently be because I like the sound of it, because I like music, because I want to play in a symphony, a myriad of other answers. I want to learn music, anything. But that one wouldn't be one that I would see. And I think that's, I can feel that sentiment already in The Hard Thing About Hard Things, even though I'm only 5 chapters in. The other thing that is becoming very apparent is the value of people and the value of support, and the fact that oftentimes CEOs feel very alone. I, as a leader, have felt alone because you really don't have a lot. You can't discuss or vent or feel in certain environments, and it feels lonely, but it doesn't have to be. And if you're able to kind of shift that perspective, and I think he does a really good job explaining the problem and getting the emotion out of it, but saying, here is the business problem. And that's where that transparency comes in, Chad, too. Like, hey, we have a problem with the product, or we have a problem with our customer service, whatever it may be. We've got to tackle this, or we don't have jobs together. Can you help me? He was afraid of that initially, but he had no other choice. He had no other option. And so by bringing it to the team, he even said very directly, when they were going down and everyone was like, you better plan, your contingency plan better be bankruptcy. Like you've got to get this in line. He instead said to them, this is the reality. This is what I need help with. If this isn't for you, then let us know. Give us respect. Think about it for the day, but I need to know if you're here or gone. And he did this big speech, and 2 people ended up leaving out of all of them. And to me, that says he had buy-in to the vision. He had people there that were ready. They were ready to handle the mission, and they were ready to tackle it. And that just was very inspiring for me to read.
So in the book, there's another point that I wanted to make was, so when building a company, it has to go in this order. This is what he lays out: people first, then product, then profits. Yes. The caveat is he does say keeping a loyal customer base should never come ahead of profits. Wow. Because now that's a neat caveat, because he's saying, listen, keeping a loyal customer base should never come ahead of profits. So this then kind of almost counters profit first, Michalowicz. And yet I'm just saying on the accounting
because he says profits first. Right.
But Ben Horowitz is not saying profits shouldn't come first. He's saying when you're building a company, you need to go in the order of thinking about people first, then about the product, then about profits. And I liked that. I mean, it doesn't have to negate what other people say about profit first or whatever, because again, that as an owner, you need to be profitable. And I think he'd be like, no, when you're talking about adding people, you need to add the right people, right seats, right bus, everything like that. Yeah. But it shouldn't come ahead of profits shouldn't come ahead of, I'm sorry. But the people, like just adding 1,000 good people doesn't make you a profitable business. And that doesn't make sense either. I don't think he'd agree with that. So if someone said, well, wait a second, your thoughts?
Well, he says early on that, that you should, putting a timeline in place is better than putting no timeline in place at all. And so how I would marry that up is, since I've been in multiple startup environments, I can definitely speak to this. Your people end up making your IP, or they contribute to the IP. So you've got to get crystal clear on the people that you want to have on the team. They have to be ambitious. They have to be bought into the vision. That is really, really important for sure. Because then otherwise you can't go in and build out the product, and you won't be able to serve in a fashion that you want. But the other thing that I think is important, though, in this chat, in this equation, is how long do you plan on running that investment? So in startup environments, they often get PE, or they get some funding from somewhere. So they do their capital run, and then they get it, and then they get to use it. Some people bootstrap it. And so how long are you willing to do that? That's where I think this particular people, product, profit formula works, because eventually you will have to turn a profit. Eventually you have to get that over. Otherwise, we're not in business anymore. Right. But he's saying, in order to be successful, this is the order with which I like to play. And I agree with it, because they do. You can't, if you do product first, that's not impossible, because once you have your products up and running, you can hire to that. But if you're building something as a startup, you want your talent is your biggest asset.
Right. The last thing within the book, so as to be a complete book review, there were 5 points, which I know is long, but 5 points, and I'll just make them real quick. That he says, rules to success in managing your company. A CEO should, one of 5 things. Number 1, hire a team whose ambitions are in accordance with the company's vision. It begs the question, have you cast your vision? Number 2. Right? Number 2, a CEO should set up and maintain clear company policies. So protocols, stuff like that, just how are you running it? Which culture fits
don't gloss over that. I know we're going to go long.
I know.
I can't speak enough to that, though. Did you say clear organizational policies?
Clear company policies. Yep.
Yeah. It makes life so much easier. It's really a beautiful thing. And I speak to that personally. We hired a chief human resources officer a little bit ago, and it has been the biggest gift in like 12 years. Very, very experienced, lots of great policy, lots of compliance, it just makes everything so much easier. And she really brings the human heart into it. So yeah, I think
so much fun.
I know. I think, but we have to have her on the podcast. I think policies actually give you that structure. It holds the frame. It's like the dancing partner. It holds the frame so that you can flourish and be creative. Okay. Sorry, keep going.
No. Number 3, a CEO should promote and compensate good employees based on unbiased evaluation tools, which I'm excited to say we have a book coming up. Let me look at the title name. It is Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go by authors Beverly L.K. and Julie Winkle Giuliani. So Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, if you want to check that out. That is coming up on the 11th-ish book. So just so you have an idea, I thought I'd point that out because that has a lot of lists of really cool ways that you can, evaluate. But to me, to oversimplify it, within my EOS structure of, traction, framework, if you have defined your core values, then you judge on core values. So there's the
you rank you definitely use those behaviors to judge performance. You can incorporate those in a really great way. That's going to be a fun book because every person is the hero in their own story. So you're right. If they're not growing, they're looking somewhere else. And it doesn't have to mean growing into a new role. I can't wait to discuss this. It does not mean having to promote upwards. It just means deepening your knowledge. And cool. Okay.
Well, and I like that book is written by 2 females because it helps bring balance to our guy lineup of authors, so that way there's a different
so glad you said that.
Thank you. Thank you. So number 4, rules to success in managing your company. A CEO should, number 4, hold regular meetings between employees and management. If you have 5 employees and you're the only dentist, you are the management. Your office manager, I suppose, might be management if you have an office manager, if you're that small, and everyone else is the employees. And you need to kind of keep them abreast as to your vision casting and, what's going on. So how often? Maybe at least once a year for starters. I think healthy is quarterly.
I don't know if that's regular meetings. I would see that as consistent, like more than once a year.
Sure. And again, I have, quarterly vision casting meetings and stuff like that with my employees. I run it different, but if a dentist said, no, I don't do that. It's just like,
well, don't you do morning huddles though?
Yes. No, but, I don't know. You
mean like to work on the business?
Nitty gritty. Yeah.
Okay. Got you.
And we even have a leadership team that gets together weekly. We get together as a whole team monthly, and stuff like that, but then quarterly. So yes, there's a pattern that we have. Don't think it's, overly simplified, but I'm trying to keep it simple for someone that's like, wait, I don't do that. It's like maybe once a year you could at least cast your vision and have your team just for starters. That's all. I'm toe in the water kind of like.
Hey, we do every other week. We do an all hands on deck, all employee town hall meeting, and we review
international lines now, isn't it? For you
everything.
Guys?
Yes. Across multiple time zones. It's wonderful. And what I really like about it is every single time we review our annual mission, we review our key characteristics, and we review our goal. Like where are we going and how are we going to get there? So what economic objectives do we have? So here's our big annual goal. How are we going to get there and what behaviors every single time without fail? And it keeps people focused, and you've got to open up that space. I'm a big advocate for opening up space so that you can understand what's really going on, no matter how big you are.
And therefore, you'll like point number 5, rules to success in managing your company. A CEO should invest in employee training. Your thoughts?
Well, since I'm doing an all employee company training tomorrow and the next day we do invest in we are a learning company. So number 5, I'm all about. I could do a whole podcast episode on the education that's been given to myself, not counting all of our employees and their own growth path as well. I think, that's a whole different topic. You can be an entrepreneur in the right setting And I can't sing the praises enough. Invest in your team, invest in your team, invest in your team. You care about them, they'll care about you.
So if you happen to show them this video tomorrow, as a coming back from break kind of thing, hi everyone, hope you're having a great PDA team meeting. And yes, investing in employee training is something that PDA does for successful management of the company. And it's something as dentists that we should do too. And so you guys are modeling PDA. You guys are modeling what we are as dental offices supposed to be doing too, is not just investing in ourselves, which is important. And a lot of people might skip on that even, but even going further and investing your team up too. So,
you know what I love the most? I will use you as an example. You, regardless of the circumstances that I've seen you go through over the past few years, because you have had the hard thing about hard things, you continue to invest in your team. You don't stop. You've lost associates or you've lost team members. It's been frustrating at times. And all business owners go through that, but you don't stop investing. And I've been with you at the times where it can feel very frustrating. For both of us in our own respective careers. So I think great leaders understand that you don't stop. You keep investing and you take that risk and it pays off in the long run.
Yep. Well, everyone, listen, if you're looking for a silver bullet, I see a title somehow. The creative people need to work with silver bullet in this, but and I'm saying it now. You guys will see it, and you'll be like, "Well, that is the title of the podcast." We're just talking right now, but there's no silver bullet. Sometimes it's just lead bullets, meaning you just gotta, shoot down the regular old bullets and get the job done. So, great job, Ben Horowitz, for the book, A Hard Thing About Hard Things. And hope you had a good time listening in on this. Now go read it. Regan, your thoughts?
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. That's my summary. They don't. Some of the best people that I've met in my entire life, they get knocked down, but they just pop back up. And what I am seeing in this book is there is a can-do attitude. And I think just setting up the expectation that hard times will occur, how you tackle them is what matters. And understanding that if you're in it to be great, if you aspire to that level of greatness, whatever it is that your goal is, and even this is what I was going to leave it on. I just remembered, no matter where you are at in life, you will have these types of challenges. And one of my favorite examples is I have a friend of mine who's a librarian. And I have thought during the past 20 years, like when things get hard, maybe I'll just be a librarian. Isn't that a nice job, Chad? Doesn't that sound peaceful? Like you just get to look at the new books coming in, meet people. It's a quiet environment. No, he got library elbow. Did you know that librarian elbow is a thing?
No.
It's a thing. It's an injury that occurs because you're bending over and you're grabbing books out of bins. And this friend of mine was complaining about the hardships of being a librarian. And I realized in that moment, it doesn't matter what your job is. Life is set up, so you're going to have to tackle hard things. So I'm thank you for sharing this book with me, Chad. I encourage all the readers to read it because it'll help give you some tools to shift that perspective a little bit so that when you hit your hard times, you can get through them easier.
Well, there was a famous philosopher of the last century, the late last century, who said, "I get knocked down, but I get up again because they are never going to keep me down. So everyone Chumbawamba on."
Did you know when I did roller derby practice that was the song that they made every time they said, "I get knocked down," you had to go while you're skating, you had to drop to one knee, skate, and then get back up again. Every time I get knocked down, my knees hurt just thinking about it.
Well, way to Chumbawamba on.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, listeners.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Everyday Practices Podcast. Chad and I are here every week thanks to our community of listeners just like you, and we'd love your help. It would mean the world if you can help spread the word by sharing this episode with a fellow dentist and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Do you have an extraordinary story you'd like to share or feedback on how we can make this podcast even more awesome? Drop us an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. And don't forget to check out our other podcasts from Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentist.com/podcasts. See you next week.